Well, as lockdown winds down across most of the country, experts are warning that the mental health impacts the COVID-19 crisis has caused are only just beginning to be felt, with people in vulnerable groups suffering some of the worst outcomes. A study from the University of Bath found that 1 in 4 respondents experienced significantly elevated anxiety and depression. Sky's Ivor Bennett spoke to one chronic asthma sufferer about his experience of shielding.
If I wake up sad, then I just have 15 hours of feeling sad, and then I go to bed even sadder.
While shielding has protected Stephen's physical health, it's been at the severe detriment of his mental well-being.
I'm sad or down most days. I can't see any kind of end in sight, and spend quite a few days just wishing I was dead because I don't have, there's nothing to look forward to, and there's no one helping me. Nobody seems to care.
Although he's self-employed, Stephen's fallen through the gaps of the government support schemes and now relies on food banks. He says talking about his problems helps, but without any family, I'm only the 5th person he's spoken to since February.
Have you sought help from other places, like the Samaritans, for example?
I've considered it. I've called 2 or 3 times, but I've always hung up because
Why?
I don't want to be a bother to people, and because I haven't spoken to anybody. If I started telling everybody my problems, then it would be a long, long list.
Stephen is by no means alone. A study by the University of Bath found that 1/4 of participants had significantly elevated anxiety and depression as a result of lockdown. 15% reached clinical levels of health anxiety, which means a fear of contracting a serious illness, and that's triple what's considered to be normal.
I think it's going to be really important moving forwards for service providers to think about how can we best support people during this time, because there might be an increase in referrals, there might be more people requiring support.
Even though lockdown is gradually disappearing, experts fear the mental health challenges it's brought will persist as the economic impact of the pandemic begins to take root.
It's been getting increasingly worse, and we're hyper aware of the fact that, furlough ends soon. So at the moment, we're trying to raise 1 million for Samaritans, because we know once we start signposting people to them, they're going to get a higher influx of people coming their way.
It's hoped that by researching these issues, clinicians will be better equipped to help people like Stephen. COVID-19, not the only illness brought on by this pandemic. Ivor Bennett, Sky News.
Well, joining us now is the research lead for the report, Dr. Jo Daniels from the University of Bath. Dr. Daniels, lovely to see you this morning. I suppose, in a way, what your research simply confirms that which many of us will have experienced and the rest will have suspected, that lockdown has had a negative impact, a significant negative impact on our mental well-being.
Yes, that's right. So we know now that up to 40% of people were experiencing a lot of distress. So that's a kind of distress where people find it difficult in their day-to-day lives. So that's in terms of anxiety and depression. But we also now know that 15%, and that's 2 to 3 times higher rates of health anxiety in the population. We talked about it a lot, but we didn't have the data to back it up.
Can we generalise about whether or not these are pre-existing conditions that are worsening, or that this is something that has been created by the way in which we've been trying to manage the pandemic?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that we did think about. So we did ask people if they had pre-existing mental health problems, and we also compared our data to data that was already out there, so that how much prevalence there is in terms of anxiety and depression. And we have found that it is significantly higher than norm. So that's what the research that was out there before.
Well, speaking as someone who himself had a couple of wobbles during lockdown, I know just how difficult it has been for many, many people. What would you recommend to those? I mean, we are likely to see lockdown again in various parts of the country, it would appear. What would you recommend to people who, like myself, are a bit concerned about the prospect of being stuck at home again?
Well, the most important thing to say is that anxiety at a time of uncertainty is really very, very normal, and that's where we have to start. So we have to have some self-compassion and some acceptance that we are, like you say, going to feel a little bit wobbly during these times. We don't find it easy to be in situations where we're not in control, and that's something we need to think about as well. So what we found in the study was that some of the coping strategies that people use were unhelpful, so it made them feel, in effect, worse. So things like giving up, not engaging with normal life, substance use, so that's something like drinking a lot, eating a lot, those kinds of strategies, and blaming yourself for not coping better, they were all associated with poor outcomes. But we did find that actually people in general were using really helpful strategies such as acceptance and seeking social support. So those are the things that we would promote, really. Try and accept the situation as it is, try and do the things that you can, plan positive activities. People talk about it a lot, but now we've got the data to support it. Find the positive benefits of the experience. But also the important thing is for people to seek help if they do really feel like it is too much, and reaching out to friends, which is again another important thing. If that's not enough, then they should seek support from their GP or mental health provider. And that is really, really vital to say, particularly the shielders, who we now know from this research fare much, much worse.
Indeed. Some sound advice there that I'll make sure that we put out on our social media channels just as soon as we can. Dr. Jo Daniels, pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you.